Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Wilson. I'm the Ani Yomiya Community Program Coordinator at the Museum of the Cherokee Indian. With me on the stage are my speakers. We have in the top left, Kelly Murphy, in the top right, Landon French, and in the bottom right, David Jumper. They'll be doing introductions in just a moment. I'm going to kind of go over some aspects to this application just to help everyone kind of keep things fluid and engaged. So you'll see my screen come up on yours in just a moment. All right, so you can kind of see like the window effect here, but over here, you see the chat. A lot of you have said hello and hello everyone. We're glad you're here and we're looking forward to sharing all of our information with you. The Q&A section is where if you guys have any questions that you want to ask our speakers, or if you want to, that's just our Q&A. If you want to ask questions, then ask your question here and I'll pull it up on stage and our speakers will answer your questions as we get to them. Let's see, stop sharing. And so starting with David, we're going to go through our speaker introductions and we're really excited that they can be here.
Hello, Shia David Deltadeg Dagwadon, Taline, the Gadeo Hushko, the Delo Boston. My name is David Jumper. I teach second grade here at the school. It's at the New Katua Academy. I've been here for August 16th of this year will be 12 years that I've been here at the school, and I've taught in every classroom from 2 years old up to sixth grade. But like I said, right now I'm currently the second grade language specialist.
Boa, Shio Nagad, Zistilu Dagwado, Zoshkata Igwadetiad, Nale Wayohi de Guanasha, Adzegadu Dagaluistaneho, he Idetiad Kakwadu Idetiad Dagaluistaneha, Adzegadua. Shio, my name's Kelly Murphy, Udistaluke in Cherokee Language. This summer makes 17 years. Well, this year makes 18 years that I worked at Nugadu Academy. I work in the kindergarten classroom, but just like Chunk or Diltadeg, I've worked with all the kids, and I currently work with 5th and 6th grade helping with Cherokee Language Arts. And I'm excited to do this. This is my first panel in a while, probably since about 5 years that I was in at Nugadua. So I'm excited. Shki.
Oh wow. Shiona God, Galenzi Dagwado, Landon French, Unanti Dagwado. Hish Udatiad, Dagwado Stani Home, Adzegadua. Hello everyone, my name's Landon French, and this is my 5th year working at New Kadua. Shki.
All right. Okay, everyone. So one of the topics that we're going to cover today is just general, specifically the deterioration of the language within Cherokee society. What factors may have led to that? Historically, we have quite a bit of evidence, but I would like to have our speakers come in and talk about that. So we can start with, we can do things in the same order as the introductions if you guys are good with that.
For anybody that hasn't seen the drama, the play that we put on in the summertime here in Cherokee, it tells the story of when we first contact, I guess. And, that's when it all began as far as the colonizers bringing Christianity and enforcing it upon us and forcing us to speak English and learn to read and write English. But I would probably speak more on my experience as far as having a parent and a couple of my aunts and uncles that went to a boarding school out in Oklahoma. They weren't speakers, but I heard the stories about, the ones that did speak Cherokee that were their age that got beat and whipped and were forced to cut their hair and things like that in order to keep them from speaking Cherokee. And I've always heard, my whole life before I actually got into the movement of trying to save the language that a lot of speakers didn't teach their kids, because I have classmates that I graduated high school with that have parents or speakers for parents, and they didn't teach their kids. And I could have been going to high school with kids that spoke Cherokee. But again, it was the whole thing of, I guess, kind of that generational trauma. They didn't want to possibly have their kids go through the same thing that they went through, being forced to go to one of those schools and being punished for speaking their language. So I grew up with quite a few people who I didn't know had parents or a parent that was a fluent speaker until, even just recently working here at the school in recent years, I've met speakers that are like, they talk to me and say, yeah, you went to high school with my son or my daughter. And, it's just that. And people like to, people outside of native country like to say, tell us to get over it. But it was just in recent 50 or 60 years that this has been happening still. And like I said, I have classmates and people that are my age, 40 years old, that have speakers at home and didn't learn a bit. But that's just my experience. And, like I said, I guess we kind of go through we all know the whole kind of history of a generalized history, but I just like to speak to my experience of how and why I didn't learn any language growing up. And I think that goes for a lot of us, people of my generation.
Yeah, I think for me, it's kind of the same thing too. My grandmother was a fluent Cherokee speaker, and that's where I got a lot of my language from to begin out with. And let's see, even when I was in elementary school, like I loved Cherokee language class, and one of my first Cherokee language teachers was Miss Stacy Wolf, and she's kind of one that inspired me, I guess. She was one of my favorite Cherokee language teachers. But I remember going home and like using words that she taught me at school, and I'd write it down and I'd tape it up on the wall. Like one specifically that I remember is Gosh Shalane, and I put it by my closet in my room. And I don't know. I think for my grandma too, like she went to boarding school, and she told me some of her experiences, and they weren't very pleasant. That's, I guess, why she didn't teach her daughters. And one of the things that she said did happen to her at boarding school was if she was caught speaking Cherokee, she wasn't allowed to go home on the weekends like everybody else. She had to stay there, and just being smacked on the hand with a ruler. And I think at some point we gotta keep saying, well, my grandmother didn't teach me, or we all gotta work together. The language is in a critical state right now. We got to do what we can, use what we can. I know boarding schools did have a big impact on the language, but I think just keep doing what we can and push forward and persevere.
Oh well, yeah. Going off for deal today, David said, "As see, I didn't grow up with anyone around my age that had a parent. It was always a grandparent or a great grandparent. Like myself, my great grandpa Newman Arnich, he's the last fluent speaker within my mom's side of the family, and on my dad's side, I'm not even sure who was the last fluent speaker on that side. So as for me, we've all heard the stories of the boarding schools and if they're like different people were caught speaking Cherokee, the different punishments they would go through. And then you also have with grandparents or parents not teaching their kids because, as Dill today touched on, is like they either didn't want their kids to go through that in case they were taken to boarding schools or went to boarding schools. And with me, like growing up, where I went to school at, I went to Smoky Mountain Elementary. And so we didn't have a time for a Cherokee language class. It was Vanjie Stevens. She volunteered to teach Cherokee language after school. And I was after school for about maybe 30 minutes. And that was my first exposure that I can remember to Cherokee language class or some form of Cherokee language. And then from then on, at the time, I was, wasn't really interested in Cherokee language until I got to high school. And it just kind of came from like English teacher. He knew more Cherokee than I did, and he wasn't Cherokee. He was a non-native. And then he had asked me, Zalagi Hawoni, I don't know what you just said. And he was like, okay, how well? And he was like, I asked, do you speak Cherokee? And I just felt so embarrassed that this non-Cherokee person spoke to me in my own language, and I had no idea what he said. So from then, like, I asked Mom, like, do you know anyone who teaching classes or anything? And Garfield Long, he was teaching classes on Mondays and once a week. And so then that's when, like, I started wanting to learn more. And then when I started working at New Kadua is whenever I started to use it more. And so you can take all the classes you want, but if you're not going to use it outside of the class, then it's not going to help grow the language. And then if you don't use it outside of class or outside of like a certain time, you're just kind of going to lose it. But how about Skate?
So yeah, a lot of the historical context is, even from the time of George Washington, there were several policies in effect that were aimed at assimilating Native American tribes, and being on the East Coast and being the way that we were, in terms of wanting to coexist, we were one of the first hit. So, these policies have been with us a lot longer, and so is colonization. So that, has had a bad effect on our language. My grandfather, he's the same as, Landon's. He went to these schools he didn't want to teach because of everything that he went through. So he was protecting his family. And there's a lot of knowledge that, my family's lost as well from just all of the United States policies that were in effect. And the Indian Termination Act, which was dissolved in the 70s, did an irreparable amount of damage, and all we can really do is push forward. So I really thank you guys for what you're doing at the school. Speaking of which, if we could go into the history of Gadua Academy and then what it took to get the school, what the goal is, that would be wonderful. So we can start with whoever wants to go first can speak on this.
I think Kelly might want to start us out on this one. She's been here the longest out of all of us.
Oh, so the school first opened in 2004, and it started out with one classroom, and I think we had 10 kids. And when I first started, their ages ranged from 6 months up to anywhere from 6 months up until 1. But we started at another local school here in Cherokee, Dora Reed Child Care Center. We had one classroom, and we've just consistently built onto that each year. Then I think Renessa, the manager at the time, Renessa McLaughlin, she fought to get us at the Boundary Trees building where we're at now. And let's see, that opened up in 2009. We were there on the weekend. moving stuff from Dora Reed up until that next day or the next week when we got to open up on October 7th in the new building. And let's see, we went from one classroom to now we have 6th grade. And I'm not sure how many classes we've graduated. Do either of you know? I know the ones that I first started out with, they're graduating this year and they're seniors. And that's something to see that you were there. You know, you used to change their diapers and here they are getting ready to graduate, and it just blows your mind. But let's see. Do you guys want to add on anything to that? What, I know I left some stuff out.
I got hired on in 2010, August of 2010. So I'm a little bit behind Kelly as far as, you know, how long I've worked here. But I remember I was working at the youth center here in Cherokee, and like Landon said, Garfield was teaching classes online and hosting classes in person up here at the school. And I worked at the youth center for 2 years and applied 3 times before I got hired. But you know, like she said, it went from having one little classroom, you know, to they expanded the whole daycare side, and each class, that oldest class, they were the first class to go through 3rd grade, 4th grade, and all the way up to graduation. But it just kind of grew, you know, and people were really taking an interest in it. And these speakers, that they were people you would see out here in the community growing up and never knew that they spoke Cherokee. But like I said, I started here and have been here almost 12 years now, and it's grown so much. And these kids, like she said, I'm getting ready to go watch one of them play basketball tonight, and he's like the star basketball player down at Swain right now. And it's just crazy to see how much it's grown. But also at the same time, you know, we've all seen the numbers, how many speakers we have left here in Cherokee and out in Oklahoma. And it's kind of discouraging that, you know, it's not that they don't want to come work, but they're just getting to an age where they can't work and don't want to work anymore. Maybe they're just tired, you know. So we've got us 3 and the ones that are here. Another one is Michelle Wolf Long, and she and I used to come to like every event that they had until we got hired working here. And then, you know, we've got people coming behind us like Landon. But I think, Kelly, if that class graduated if they're graduating this year, so 17, and they were the first ones, we've got like 6 or 7 graduating classes now, something like that, 7 or 8. So we want to keep growing, but we need people, second language learners and speakers, you know, to help us do that.
And going off of that, when Landon first applied, I was one of the ones who did his interview. And I can say, like, it's amazing to see how far that he's come now. And, you know, he's doing his own language classes, teaching his own language classes now. And that's a cool 360 moment, I guess.
Yeah, so I haven't been there as long as David or Kelly, because I was hired on in 2016. And so I credit the school for like having a comfortable, almost family environment where I felt okay to speak the language out loud. I know it took me a while because I worked with Kelly in the pre-K room. And I know for those first 6 months, I did not say anything. So I didn't want to be, well, first I didn't want to be made fun of, but then again, I didn't know a lot. And then also like starting out, you know, I didn't read syllabary, so I didn't know what I was reading or saying. But yeah, I credit like being able to teach my own class now to just the school being like a safe language environment, I guess you could put it that way. And then as Kelly and David talked about, is like because the first class that I helped teach was pre-K, and they are in 4th grade now. And then when I switched to elementary side, the first class that I guess helped with was 6th graders, and seeing them graduate, it was a special moment, even though I only had been involved in that class's lives for like 8-7 months maybe. But yeah.
So policy-wise, what did it take to get the school created? Were chief and council behind it, or because I can't really remember a lot of this time. I was a teenager when the school, I think going in from middle school into high school when the school first came into effect. So I don't really remember policy-wise what was happening.
Michelle Hicks was the chief then, and him and council fully supported the school getting their own building, because dang, like thinking back at the time, we had 300 speakers at that time, and I don't know, they were behind it 100%. And
okay, so kind of jumping around in topics, we talk about how language ties into Cherokee identity, language and identity as a Cherokee person.
For me, I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking. I just started going to stomp nets and things like that later on in life, even after I started working in the language, because I realized that the language is a part of all of our culture and traditions. There's language used in those things, those ceremonies, and just in even making baskets and pottery and beadwork and stuff. There's language that's used only for those things, and there's a lot of it that's been lost because people are learning how to do these crafts and have these skills and stuff, but the language is going away with it. So for me, that's a huge part. That became a huge part of who I am, because I wanted to be able to go to the stomp grounds and dance and pray in Cherokee. Whereas, you go to, we only have a couple of grounds here, but you go to Oklahoma and you hear people just talking Cherokee only in some of the places when they're doing ceremonies and dances. And it's an awesome thing to see and hear for me. So I think once I started taking classes up here and trying to get hired up here is when it became a huge thing for me to be able to not only say that I'm Cherokee, because I am mixed. My dad is Black and my mom is Cherokee. So growing up, that was kind of a thing for me where I didn't know where I was in this world or how I identified in this world. So, but growing up here, I always felt like I was more Cherokee than anything. So I think learning the language is part of that closure and completion for me to know who I am. And I do recognize my other side, but growing up here and with the crisis that we're in with the language, I think that has kind of taken over more for me. And so I just want to be able to use it in everyday life, in ceremony. I want to be able to use it, with outside of work. I want to go to the grocery store and talk to Cherokee to somebody one day that didn't know Cherokee before, because they've started coming to classes or took them on themselves to learn. And I've told these kids before, when I'm kind of having to sit down and talk to them about when they won't speak Cherokee, I tell them, I'm like, man, the part of being Cherokee is our humor. And I try to get it into their heads that part of our language is that you can go to the grocery store and talk about somebody in front of their face and they wouldn't know what you're saying. And that's part of being Cherokee, being able to use our humor and our language at the same time. But, it's just getting back to that point where we can have people in our generation and younger to be able to do that, to go out and see each other in public and just speak Cherokee.
Going off of that, I guess like a couple of our core values are, educating the children and just like he said, the sense of humor, that comes in with it. And if we lose our language, that I think that's then we lose who we are as a Native people. There's different kinds of natives out there, but what separates us from that category as just natives is our Cherokee language. That's something that nobody else can take from us, and that's something that we need to hold closer to our hearts. I don't know, just that's our direct line to our ancestors is our language, and that's what carries us on as a Native people, as Cherokee people.
Oh wow. And going off of what Kelly was saying, I don't know how many people watched the movie Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. All right. So there's this scene, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. So there's this scene where Shang-Chi and his friend Katie and his sister are sitting around a table talking with their dad. And then the dad's going around the table, and then he talks to Shang-Chi's friend Katie and asks her what her Chinese name is. And she, hesitates for a second, and he says, "Oh, Ray Win." And he goes into, Ray Win. Our names are sacred. They connect us to our ancestors. They connect us to who we are. And so when growing up here, so I didn't have like a Cherokee name growing up. I just had, my English name, and then didn't grow up practicing any language. You didn't grow up practicing going to stomp or any dances or anything. So I didn't really feel like connected to being Cherokee. And so once I started taking, Garfield's classes and started, looking into more Cherokee culture and how more I can connect to it, I started feeling more, complete, I guess you could put it. I felt more Cherokee, I guess. And then as I've gotten more into Cherokee culture, I guess how I view like David and Kelly, because they'd be the ones that I would go to, like if I have questions, I know I can go to them, and they've been involved with Cherokee culture, Cherokee language, Cherokee everything longer than I have. So I know if I go to them with a question or anything, I know, they have the answers, I guess. And then they probably see the same way with like the fluent speakers. Whenever they have a question about anything Cherokee or just anything in general, they can go to the fluent speakers. And so as a way, I think it's pretty cool because in a way, through, I guess, generations or whatever, like it's all connected, I guess you could put it. I don't know. That's key.
Yeah, I really admire you guys and the work that you're doing. And, the fact that, David and Landon, you guys learn Cherokee later on, it gives me hope that, for myself, because I want to learn Cherokee. It's a fight every day to learn a new phrase or a new word, but then I learn that and try to incorporate it into life or somehow. And I'm doing that for my children so that they can have that as well. My son goes to Cherokee Central Schools where, they have the Cherokee language classes, and children are like sponges for the most part. And this, you got to get them at that critical age where they can suck in these languages and grow with that. So, but even still, teaching languages that they don't have at home or may not have at home is difficult. So what kind of methods are you guys seeing that's really helping them to retain this knowledge?
Before I go into any of that, I was going to go. I think what Landon was trying to say was Tom Belt told us a long time ago, and we've probably all heard this speech from Tom at some point or another. But he talks about we're the bridge between the speakers and the kids, but we're also bridges between each other. You know, Landon can come and ask me something, and if I don't know, I can go ask the fluent speaker or Kelly even, or Michelle, because there's stuff that they know that I don't know. So it just ties us all together. That generation that knows how to speak and grew up speaking, and then even the ones that are just beginning, you know, they're back here in the back, but they're tied in with us because they can always ask somebody that's ahead of them in line. So, you know, I think that's what he means whenever he talks about we're that bridge between the fluent speakers and the children, is that, you know, we're like all connected to each other too. It's not just us individually connecting the speakers to the children. We're connected to each other, trying to pull it back together, you know, to fill that gap. And then also, what was the next question? Next topic?
Just like what methods are you seeing that are most effective when you're teaching the kids? What helps them retain the knowledge, especially because you guys don't go into the summer. You're like, you have your summer break as well, right? So then, like when they come back to start the new school year, do you find that they retain the knowledge, or just what methods have proven successful for you guys?
I mean, obviously a fluent immersion setting would be ideal. And when we did have more speakers working here, it was more likely that you would hear these kids speaking Cherokee on public. But, you know, these speakers, like I said, are getting old and older and don't want to work or can't work. So I think a lot of what I do is just like repetition, trying to make it fun, little games. Like just this year, I came up with this little song in our classroom, and it's just a little call and response song. And they loved it from the first time we did it. So I think it's just making it fun for them. That way, even if it's just that one little activity or that one little song, you'll hear them walking up and down the hallways singing it, or hear them in the lunchroom singing it, or, you know, outside on the playground, like, let's play that game we played in class today, you know? So I think making it fun for the kids and for second language learners is a lot of how to keep it alive and relevant in their lives. I've taught a lot of my friends, some that used to even work here, and they remember words that they didn't know that I taught them because we used it in like a joking manner. But they know it, you know, because, and so you can go up and ask them, like, hey, how would you say this? Dilta Dake said that he taught you how to say this word, and they would tell you because we used to just have fun with it. So I think that has to be the biggest thing, is just to make sure it's fun and not like we're trying to like beat it into them, you know, and not just sitting here repeating words over and over and writing vocabulary words and stuff. Just talking to them and making sure that, you know, that you're interested in their lives, even like asking about home stuff, you know, and we go over that stuff that we go over here in school, but just make it interesting and fun for them, because this is the only time they're getting it.
Yeah, I know in kindergarten we use a lot of songs, and just like Dilta Dick said, making it fun for them, because, you know, if they're not having fun, or if they're not engaged, then they're sitting there like staring off. Like, then that's kind of when you know that it's not working and you got to change it up. But, you know, like even with our body parts, we have a body rock song, and that's helped my kindergartners learn a lot of their body parts, you know, just like head, shoulders, knees, and toes type song. And it just goes through all the body parts, and that's kind of helped us is songs. And then we play matching games. Uno, they love Uno, and Go Fish, and bingo. Like bingo has been a really big help this year with our numbers. because they get really competitive. And then just, it would be ideal to have fluent speakers in the classrooms with us. But, just like Chunk said, most of our fluent speakers are retired and, they want to enjoy that time. And we're having to step up now and fill those shoes. And, I don't want to say that's like on our backs, but it is. And we're having to fill that void, and we're doing what we can, I think, the best that we can. And I do want the community to know that we are trying, we do use what we know, and we do push the kids to use what they know. And it does give me hope.
Yeah. And so kind of going off what David said about using repetition, that's what I found works with first grade, especially. So like if we have like a word of the day, word of the week for first grade, that's kind of going to be like the base word that we're going to use throughout the week. And then like show them like the different ways you can use the word, like conjugations, like future, past, later on, and way back in the day or anything. And then I found with using like repetition of just about anything for first grade, it helps bring them back into the language, especially like after, say, for the weekend, say they don't speak it in the household or they don't hear it at the household. So for the amount of time I have them for the week of school, so that Monday or Tuesday, if Monday is a holiday, so that Monday or the start of the week, I just kind of go over like the base word and just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And then kind of make it a competition, because then that gets their focus like real fast. Like they want to be the first one to say it or the first one to know it, first one to get it right, however. And then like if we go out onto the playground, just try and talk to them as much outside of a formal setting as like a classroom. So like if we go on the playground, just like start kind of like joking around or start like using the word that we used for the day, and then just using it outside of the classroom. And then I found like with my own kid, using the repetition of like saying this is a flower, and then say like a zelish. That's how you say flower in Cherokee. And she'll go flower, a zelish. That's how you say flower in Cherokee. And then just kind of repeat it. And like then I'll move on to like WT, what is this? And like say hold up a flower. They're just like a zelish. Like, oh, stop. And so give them that positive feedback. It helps them feel, I assume, helps them feel like they actually know the word and comfortable using the word.
Speaking of positive reinforcement, I do cheat and give them candy. If like, but I told them, all the teachers are listening, all the lunch ladies are listening, and I let everybody else know. Say if they hear the kids going down, two of my kids going down the hallway speaking Cherokee to each other, or use as much as they can with each other, they'll come and tell us. And at the end of the day, they get like a handful of candy or something, because we didn't have to ask them to speak Cherokee. They were just doing it on their own. So, I mean, it's not just bribing them my class loves sweets. So they got a little sweet tooth, but they do enjoy that, because even there's sometimes I'll be in the classroom and I'll hear one of the kids using more Cherokee without me having to ask him or her. And I'll just go put a couple pieces of candy on their desk and, say, I heard you speaking Cherokee without me having to tell you to. So here's your prize for the day or whatever. And they really respond to that. I love my chocolate too. So if somebody wants to come around and give me chocolate for speaking Cherokee, I'll take it.
No, I wish that we could show some of Dilta Dake's cahoots. He's kind of the cahoot king. But with virtual learning, that's where a lot of that came in big this school year, was cahoots and Quizlet for my room too. That we still use that even though we're in person now, just because we liked it so much during the shutdown.
I'll have to get him to. I have to get you to teach me how to do that, because evidently you can use Kahoots on this application. I just have not been able to figure it out just yet. But I would love to be able to do that. So my next question that I would like to lead us into is regarding dialects. So at Gadua, you guys teach the Eastern dialect, yes? So I know Cherokee Nation, they have more resources than we do. Do you find it, like, what resources are there for people who want to learn the Eastern dialect of the language, like from here, or for adults as well who may not be living on the boundary or near the boundary, citizens at large? What resources are there if they want to learn the Eastern dialect versus Cherokee Nation dialect?
Hopefully COVID doesn't take over again this year. But even if it does, hopefully we're going to start offering more classes, because as Kelly said before, Landon teaches his own class. I've taught classes before. Kelly can teach classes. We have several second language learners that are able to teach classes at different levels. So hopefully we can start doing that virtually, and hopefully in person, if COVID numbers start going back down. But also there are the books that the chief's office handed out last year, 2 years ago. And you can get that as a PDF. You just have to contact Bo Lossy here at the school, and we can get you that information and stuff, because we still have plenty of those books. You can get a PDF of it. You can get sound files of the book itself, so you can hear it being said. But with that being said, unfortunately, there aren't a whole lot of resources. Like you said, Cherokee Nation has a lot more than we do, just because they have more speakers. But per capita, they're in the same boat that we are. Like, they have such big numbers of enrolled members, but their speaker numbers are just as low as ours by percentage wise.
On Facebook too, there's I know Hartwell's been posting some videos and stuff on there, books and readings and stuff. What is that? The KPET page? Do you guys know? I think it's a Katuah Preservation and Education Program. I can double check before we log off, but I know that helps too, because we've used a couple of those. I've used it at home, even with my little ones, just putting that on the TV. The dialect thing, it is different sometimes. Some of the words may be different, but we do understand it, I don't know. That's just my standpoint on it, I guess.
Okay. This is just out of my own curiosity. I've been to Oklahoma very limited. I don't think I've ever been to Cherokee Nation territory, even though that's, I regret that. I plan to go there hopefully this year. What are the biggest differences that you see between our dialects? I know we say Shio differently, and there are different words that mean different things. And what, I don't know if you guys would know the answer to this, at Red Clay, when they do the big council sessions, the tri-council, don't they usually have speaker sessions where they will they'll come together to develop words for things as society evolves?
Weren't you a part of that group, Chuck? The consortium?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We have a consortium that has members that consists of members between EBCI, UKB, and Cherokee Nation, and they do meet. Before COVID, they would come here once or twice a year, and we would go out there once or twice a year. And it was more about, like you said, development of language for curriculum purposes. And I think that's all well and good, but we've gotten to a point where there's not a word for it in Cherokee. I would rather just say it in English and then just keep on rolling with Cherokee, because while we have the resources, meaning speakers, we need to utilize that time with them to just, as second language learners, make sure that we're getting our language in with them and soaking up as much as we can with them. But yeah, they do that, and it's just not so prevalent anymore just because of COVID.
So I see a few questions in our Q&A section. It looks like we may have already kind of answered one. There is a question about in-depth distance classes, and unfortunately, I don't think that's something that exists at the moment. Part of one of my projects at the museum is going to be to develop a language class that would be available for people who want to learn distantly, but I don't know how interactive that aspect of it would be. So I'm going to, just so you know that I'm not skipping your question, Dwayne Murdoch, I believe that we covered it. So I'm going to bring up the other two questions in here. One of them you may or may not know, you guys may or may not know the answer to, but I'm going to bring those up right now.
I want to say you can donate to the school, but I'm not for sure. Should I type our school's number in the comment section?
Yeah, you can do that. I know, are you guys technically considered a tribal program?
Yeah.
So I would think that tribal policy would probably be the way that it's handled, but I can't remember how the tribe handles donations either. So yeah, I think if you want to put the school's information into the general chat, then that would be great.
I see that Amber Ledford has just posted a link in the comments to our page. Also, it may be a finance thing, so they may have to contact finance, but they could probably call here and find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think I was about to give I was gonna put what I thought was the tribe's general number in, and it was gonna end up being the police department. So I'll refrain from putting any phone numbers in the chat. So I'm gonna put up the next question.
I think for me personally, and I think Kelly and Galunzi would agree, the language would be first and foremost. Speaking and understanding, being able to have conversation. But I do want to say that I would rather teach syllabary also. The kids, and it's just like learning the English alphabet. Like you said earlier, they're sponges, so they can remember all kinds of stuff. They're listening when you don't think they're listening. So, but first and foremost, I would like to make sure that they understand and can speak the language.
Yeah, I agree with that. because too, just like with writing, comes reading, and that's one thing that we're wanting to incorporate more into our classroom is them being able to read simple books. The same books that they'd be getting at another kindergarten classroom, the English speaking classroom. And just like Landon said with the word of the day, that comes into that.
Okay. Did you want to say something, Landon?
I was just going to say I agree with David and Kelly. I think it's important to speak first because I think we have tons of writing material with syllabary, and with the kids are sponges, so they're able to catch on to the syllabary pretty fast. And so I think speaking is more important than learning the syllabary.
I would agree.
I think,
no, go ahead.
I think too, like when we all first started working there, none of us really knew syllabary. Did you know Dialects? Because I know walking into the first classroom I worked in, their names were all in syllabary, and I was like, "Oh no, I don't know." Like it scared me, but it's helped me learn.
I did know it, but it was because I taught myself through going to classes with Garfield. And what I would do was just write my notes in phonetics and then write the syllabary that I knew underneath the phonetics until I just, had memorized all of them. But again, that wasn't like my first priority. It was just something that I took upon myself to do. I'm glad I did. It helped a whole lot, because some people are different style learners. Like if I can see a word written in syllabary, it's more likely that I'll remember it rather than seeing written in phonetics.
I found that like with the words that I've been learning and kind of teaching myself, I would go through the phonetics first, and then I would teach myself the syllabary for it so I can recognize the syllabary, but I'm forgetting the phonetics for it. Which I guess I should just attend more classes and really work harder to retain that, because I agree. I think speaking it first and getting a better grasp on it would probably help before you evolve into learning the written portion of the language. So we've gotten a couple more in here. I'm going to show this one on stage, even though, let's see. In terms of Eastern dialect, I wouldn't say that we have a whole lot. I know one of my college projects was translating Goodnight Moon into Cherokee, but I never really did anything with that. So do you guys know if there's any books in syllabary? I think, didn't the Cherokee Nation translate one of the Harry Potter books into Cherokee, and it's written out in syllabary?
We have quite a few books. I know Myrtle translated Charlotte's Web, and that's one of our biggest chapter books that I've seen translated. I know in my room we have a lot of the little simple books that's been translated. And Hartwell Francis, he's got a little resource room going on up there at the school, and I don't know if that's accessible to everybody, or do you guys know? Or is that just for the school?
I think anything that we produce here at the school is like just for school use. We can't sell it or give it out to the public, I don't think. I'm not really sure how that works. I know we can't sell it for sure.
Yeah.
There are, I think what Hartwell does a lot of is he takes books that are online that are not, I can't remember what you call them, but I mean, it's basically you just take the book and you can use it without having to go through all the legalities and red tape of all that. And we can translate it and use it here at the school. But again, it's just for us here at the school. Anything that's made here and produced here is just basically for here. And because I've never seen any, or not, I can't say never, but I don't think there are many like at the Talking Leaf store, and even at the museum. I don't think there are many books or anything like that on syllabary or in syllabary.
No, I think what we might have at the museum is mostly based on historic things. I think we have a hymnal where it covers English, phonetic, and syllabary. And we have a few sheets here and there, but no books. And for anyone who is interested in donating to KPET, the New Gadua Academy, Amber Ledford has put that information into the general chat. And then let's see, we had another question. Let me go back up and find it. There we go.
I don't know if everybody heard earlier, but I did mention, I'm getting ready to go watch one of our alumni play basketball tonight, and I see some of them out here and there, and I still speak to them. I think they understand more than they can speak anymore, just because they don't use it at home or at school, which is, kind of disappointing, because like I said, I tried to get them to, like, hey man, even if you're just using it to talk about somebody at school, out in the store or whatever. But I don't know about reading and writing still. I'm not really sure. I haven't really had the opportunity to. I might have to ask him when I get there this evening how much he can still read and write. But I know they understand a lot more than they speak anymore.
It is in the talks. I think the last time I talked to our supervisor, it is in the talks of doing like a after school like alumni group, I guess. And that's something I really look forward to, because they do, not being around it every day, they are going to lose some, like being able to speak it and use it like they used to. But I know that is in the talks.
I think that question is that's probably like a Bo Lossie question, one of our curricular development guys. I don't know how. I know we do contract work with outside people, people that don't technically work here, but they fall under contract here and come here and help teach us and teach the kids and help with the development of curriculum. But I'm not really sure how that process goes. But like I said, I think that would be probably a Bo or Hartwell question.
Amber Ledford just mentioned in the chat something about Project Songbird. Could you guys give a little more information on what that might be?
I think that's Bo Lossie and Hartwell's. It's a grant that they got to, that just came out a couple months ago, and we really haven't heard much about it either.
Okay, I think things they're slowing down a little bit. for everyone interested in like the contact information and all that, the link that Amber posted in the general chat to the KPET site should have all contact information for anyone you may want to get in touch with. And then for some of their projects or any resources they might have, their website and the Facebook page will be a good place to check. I know I had one more question, but I'm having a moment. So I know Landon teaches a Cherokee language class at the museum. So would you guys be also interested in pursuing like teaching classes to the community through other means?
I definitely will be teaching more. We just got back into school, this last couple of weeks, and COVID's kind of hitting us a little bit. So, but when I finally get me a little curriculum set up and some lessons and lesson plans just put together, I will be doing at least a virtual class. And if I probably will just be announcing it on Facebook and maybe see if they want to announce it on our tribal email system.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to help too, get involved with that. Because I know, you have that language, and I feel like that's part of your way of giving back is to put it out there for everybody and for you to at least offer it.
And I think go ahead, Jen.
No, go ahead, Landon. I was just
Yeah. So I was gonna say, like, I found like the hardest thing because of COVID and all that is finding because I like teaching like physically instead of virtually. I just find like doing like person to person, they're able to retain more because then you kind of like gauge the class and like you can add humor here and there. As like David said, like humor is a big part of Cherokee culture. And I feel like it helps like physically, like with a class, helps them retain the information. And I know for one of the classes that I taught for like some of the museum staff, like a lot of the stuff they remembered was like the bad stuff that I didn't want them to remember. But I know you were there for a few of those classes. So
yeah, I think I contributed.
But yeah, I think the best way to teach the language is like person to person, like in-person teaching. Virtually is like kind of what I say is my last like go-to. It's a safe space to teach, like in terms of like not catching corona or anything, but there's like something that you miss when you're talking like to the screen and trying to make sure everyone like hears you, make sure your internet connection is good and all that. So I'd just say like that's the thing that I found to be the most troublesome was finding a space to teach.
I will say, like, once I get some of my projects off the ground, Cherokee language classes are definitely one of them. If you guys would be interested in doing, I know we could do a virtual session with this software if you guys like it. And if any, we can get the interest and you guys want to do the virtual, we can facilitate it. And really get these classes out there because you're right, learning this language it's crucial. It's crucial, as someone who doesn't speak the language, is not fluent. I find ways to incorporate it into my life, but I feel like I wouldn't be as insecure in my identity if I had a better grasp on it. And, it's back to, the residential schools, my grandfather just flat out refused to teach the language or any of the things that he knew. And it's something that, it hurts. It hurts, to the soul that's happened and that the repercussions are going down through the generations because of it.
I think, talking about your insecurity with your identity, it's not just don't get down on yourself because of that. We all have it still. Kelly and I and Landon, we're all in classes together, and we've got 30 something years combined between the three of us in language, and we're all still kind of intimidated and shy and nervous sometimes in front of the speakers. So I mean, don't think that you're the only one and let it get you discouraged, because I read this book this one time and I try to force myself to do it every day, but it's just so easily to switch back into English. And what the guy said in the book is he's a second language learner. And so what he did, he would go out in the public and speak his language to people, even if they didn't speak it, and then just say in English. That way, at least he's getting that practice. And I've yet to find a method of me getting out of my comfort zone and out of that headspace to make myself do that out in public. Because I know people aren't going to understand it, and they're automatically speaking English to me as soon as they see me. So it's just easier for me to slip back into English. And then after I'm done talking to them, I'm like, man, why didn't I say that in Cherokee? And also what the guy would do is if he didn't know how to say something in his language, he would write it down and take it back to one of the speakers and then learn that language that he didn't know. So he was practicing and learning new stuff like every day. So, but don't get down or insecure for anybody that's trying to learn. You know, we all have it. We're all there. You know, all of us second language learners are still like little babies learning when it comes to being around these speakers.
What was it? We talked about that one day. You got to get uncomfortable. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, because even in our language classes that we do, you know, like when it's my turn, I'm like, oh God, I'm going to mess up. Oh God. And then I start sweating. Like I get nervous, but that's just it. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's never going to go away.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on, like I found like my language class, because I have 2 fluent speakers in my language class for the day, and I do still find myself getting nervous, especially if it's like a new word, and then I'm trying to pronounce it and I'm like halfway through and I start stumbling and mumbling and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'd say like just keep trying and do the best that you can, and that's all like I can hope anyone can do when they're learning like the Cherokee language. Is like just do the best that you can. Go ahead, Jen.
I saw those green dots and I was like, I'm gonna wait. But yeah, you know, I'm definitely gonna reach out to Bo for some of these resources that are available to the public, like that book, the PDF version of that book. As a parent, I feel that extra pressure though to make sure that my kids are growing up with at least some of the language around them. And I hope Bo is prepared for some of our viewers, you know, an increase in volume in those requests. I had another thought, but of course it escapes me at the moment. It looks like things are starting to slow down in terms of questions. You know, we've come pretty close to the end of where I had set. So if you guys are good, I'll be reaching out to you closer to the summer to see if you guys are ready to start doing some language classes, and hopefully we can do like a mix of virtual and in person. And Landon, I'll start going to your classes at the museum.
I won't say his name, but one of your coworkers better start going too, because I know he's listening. I'm always getting on to him about not coming to classes whenever we have them. But the last thing I was going to say is you do have it's my work email that you have. I don't mind you sharing with anybody that asks. I will just say, if you do get my work email, just be patient. We get Kelly and Landon and all of us that work here constantly are bombarded with questions about how to say things, how to write things. So between work and, you know, other things in life, just life in general, I try to get back to everybody that reaches out to me. And if I don't, shoot me another email or whatever. But it's constant, something every day, probably 3 or 4 messages a day at least. How do you say this? How do you say that? But I'm fine with you giving that email out to anybody that asks.
Okay, yeah, if everyone can just bear with me, I'm going to find his email real quick and put that in our general chat for people to have. Started trying to speak with the microphone off. All right, so I want to thank Kelly, David, Landon for joining us today. I think it was really informative, and I think you guys have provided us with quite a bit of resources for people who want to be second language learners, and where they can start and kind of get going with that to learn the Eastern dialect. So yeah, thank you guys for being here. If you have any last words you want to say, then jump right in. Okay, looks like it's not. So if you guys want to, I always heard that we didn't have a word for goodbye. So if you want to say like our farewell, and then that could be part of a bit of a lesson for everyone as we end this session.
Dana Dagahayu.
They doggo honey.
Oh, Nadina, Zulashk.
Go you.
Buena, Dan.
Always should not lie.
Wow.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to end the session now. Once I end the session, you'll be put back into our social networking lounge, which all that is if you click on the table, it's like its own private video chat room. And you guys can socialize afterwards if you so wish. So thank you, everyone. I will see you at the next session, hopefully on, let me make sure my dates are right, January 26th. We will have Kelly Gonzalez, Roy Boney, Jeff Edwards, and John Henry Gloin to talk about art, language, and culture. So thank you.